awesome. This movie totally just ruined elevators for me. So Dressed to Kill tells the story about an adulteress who is slain in an elevator, and the call girl who witnesses the murder, becoming the main suspect, has to find the killer before she is hauled off and blamed for the kill. What's going on, everybody? This is actually a requested review. This was requested for me to do by a friend, Derek Mayo. If you guys are not a member of the Killer Flicks horror group, which you should be, so definitely join after watching this video, then you're probably not aware of the situation going on with our friend Derek. Derek has been battling a really bad form of cancer for the past couple of years, and here recently, unfortunately, has been given some not very optimistic news involving his case. So, been a lot of support on Killer Flicks. It's actually been very moving seeing how many people are out there to support Derek. It's been very, good kind of getting to see how many people, just movie fans, are out there just to support a good friend that most of us, probably all of us honestly, haven't even really met face to face. But Derek's just such a great personality and such a cool person to interact with. Even the little bit of time that I've been on Killer Flicks, a little bit less than a year, I've seen so much great stuff come from Derek and conversations with Derek, and especially involving Drum Dums and some of the cool stuff that he sent him and got him to watch, and then vicariously I've watched also. So Derek's been a very cool person to kind of get to know, and it's heartbreaking the kind of stuff that he's been going through lately. It's stuff that I can't even imagine. So Derek, I hope you appreciate this review, man. I really appreciated the recommendation to watch this movie, which you'll find out in the review. And I hope you get some better news soon, and I hope you're doing as well as you possibly can under the circumstances. So this one is for you, my friend. So Dressed to Kill is a movie that I've always heard of. I've always heard reference of the famous elevator scene, but it's a movie that I've never actually taken the time to watch. I am a Brian De Palma fan, but for me, I've always kind of viewed him as the gangster movie guy, because, Untouchables is my favorite movie by his, Scarface a close second, Carlito's Way a close third. I love those movies. So even though I've seen movies like Carrie and a couple others that he's done, I always view him as the mobster movie guy. And when I think about an erotic thriller like Dressed to Kill, for some reason, I just never had the push to go and watch it. Well, now I've had the push with Derek recommending me to see this. I bought the Criterion Collection version of the Blu-ray, sat down this afternoon, watched it, and wow, this movie was a surprising experience. I've never really been a big erotic thriller guy. I think when I was a kid, erotic thrillers to me always seemed like the old guy horror movies for some reason. Like when my parents would watch Fatal Attraction or Basic Instinct, I would just kind of roll my eyes and go watch Nightmare on Elm Street. But as I've gotten older, obviously I appreciate those movies, but it's never really been a genre that I gravitate towards. Dressed to Kill is one of the most, if not the most interesting of that genre that I've seen, and it's all because of Brian De Palma. Brian De Palma is the star of this movie to me. I mean, this guy is just, he's a director that has such a subtle but signature style to him that I can watch a movie not knowing it's a Brian De Palma, and as soon as a certain type of camera movement comes on, immediately I'm tipped off, oh shit, this is a Brian De Palma film. There's just something about the way that that guy knows how to direct and how to move the camera around to kind of tell the story, even sometimes without any dialogue, like a scene I'm going to talk about in this movie that is just so him that it immediately puts his stamp on the story that he's telling, and in a lot of ways tells the story in a very non-conventional way that no other director would be able to accomplish. On paper, it's a pretty basic story. You have a woman who's having a lot of sexual insecurities in her older age, some issues at home with her husband. She has this infatuation and this fantasy about just a random encounter with somebody. She has that random encounter, and after she feels like it, the guilt's starting to set in, the excitement's starting to wear down, she gets murdered in this elevator by a seemingly random woman. And unfortunately for the call girl that witnesses this murder and almost becomes a secondary victim, becomes the prime suspect, and she's given an ultimatum that she needs to provide evidence that she is not the killer, otherwise they're just going to assume she's guilty. And then you're on this mystery trying to figure out who this woman is that just slain this woman with a straight razor in an elevator. But that simple story just evolves under the care of Brian De Palma. Not only with his camera work and the way that he directs and the score and all these little tricks that he uses to tell the story without the most direct way, dialogue, but also because he takes so much inspiration from Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, which I haven't actually seen too many people reference, which surprises me because when I was watching this movie, I saw Psycho references and homages and inspiration left and right. I mean, from the time where you have a main character that you're following for the first act of this movie that you assume is going to be the main character, and then randomly she's just taken out of the film and it flips on its head and starts following a different storyline, to the way that even just how her demise goes, where she goes and she does something really bad, and then when she feels like she's getting away with it and guilt starts to set in, then she gets killed. And even the way that, you know, Alfred Hitchcock was always a very visual storyteller and an innovator behind the camera, Brian De Palma takes those same exact items and those same exact skills and puts them to work to make Dressed to Kill more of a movie than it probably should have been. And it's really evidenced in the scene in a museum, and it's where the main character for the first act is walking through this museum. She sees this gentleman that she's kind of intrigued by and a little bit, you know, maybe sexually aroused by, and she kind of walks towards him and she's intrigued, and then once they interact, she kind of goes away from him because she realizes that she shouldn't be doing this, and then changes her mind and starts pursuing him again. And there's no dialogue in the scene whatsoever. I mean, you can't hear a word from either of these people. It's all told through camera work and the way that it moves through the corridors and the speed in which it's moving and slows down, speeds up, the musical score behind it. It's all visual and audio storytelling. And it's one of the most interesting scenes in this movie that is an erotic thriller, and you'd think that like the kills or, you know, some of the unveils or some of the more tense scenes would be the most memorable, and it's not. It's just two people walking through a museum. And suddenly the movie's just flipped on its head and you're following Nancy Allen's character, who's the call girl who witnesses this murder and almost becomes a victim herself, and then she's just flung into this murder mystery involving Michael Caine and this detective, and you even get the guy from Christine, who is hilarious that this guy showed up, because as soon as I saw him, it makes me want to watch Christine. Which it was funny, because as soon as I saw Keith Gordon, I was like, the last time I saw this dude play a geek, he turned into a psychopath. Where the hell is this movie going? But he's just a regular geek in this. You know, he's the son of the character in the first act who gets murdered, so he suddenly throws himself as well into this murder mystery and starts helping Nancy Allen's character. And one of the other really cool sequences as far as the camera work and that Brian De Palma style involves his character as well, where he's setting up this camera to look at Michael Caine's office, and he's trying to use mathematical equations to figure out what to set his camera to take pictures of every single person that comes out of Michael Caine's office, every single one of his patients, and the way that the camera shows where every person that comes out, he clicks a little stopwatch and it has this little stop motion and split screen look. Very cool stylistic stuff. And of course, Michael Caine, you can't mention this movie without talking about Michael Caine. That dude's just got the Michael Caine-isms that we all know and love. You know, he's got that charm, he's got that gravitas that he has in every role he's ever played. And what's cool about the role that he plays in this is that he's a really subdued character. He's just a psychologist, but it's the way that he's so direct when he talks to people as a psychologist that you would assume, unless you've been to a psychologist, that they usually try to have a little bit more bedside manner and try to, you know, try to wash around certain word usage. Michael Caine don't give a fuck. He's got these two fine-ass women that are talking to him. They're like, "You want to fuck me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I totally do." But he doesn't, because he's married. I mean, it's an erotic thriller. You gotta have at least one dude that follows the rules. All of those characters mixed together, all of their different character interactions, all of their different storylines that converge and cross at different points, it makes for a very interesting movie with a very interesting way to tell its story, how it kind of pulls the rug out from under you and goes multiple directions. And even though you can kind of tell where it's going in some spots, overall, where the story is leading you, it kind of takes you for a surprise every step of the way, because it could change at any moment. I mean, the first act proves that. One of the other greatest things about this one, which I've already kind of mentioned a little bit, but it does go along with Brian De Palma's directing, is that the musical score and some of the musical tones and, you know, a lot of the effect that he puts into that in certain scenes is really one of the bigger stars of this movie as well. Because when you have a score that effectively enhances your storytelling and kind of does some of the work for you as far as the storytelling, that is a damn good score. And the way that Brian De Palma uses the camera movement with his musical score is something that's almost hypnotic in certain scenes. It's like you're not even really watching a movie anymore. It's like you're just experiencing something. And the last positive that I definitely want to spend a minute talking about is that elevator scene. That's the scene that I was basically told about before going into this movie without spoiling all the details of it beforehand. But whenever I watched it and it finally got to an elevator, I was like, oh shit, what's about to happen, what's about to happen, what's about to happen? And this scene is crazy, the way that it's executed, the way that Brian De Palma brought this scene to life, because we've seen this before. We've seen it in numerous movies, murder mysteries, horror movies. Somebody gets killed in an elevator, big whoop. You get to watch Brian De Palma do an elevator murder scene, and it's unlike any of those movies you've ever seen. I mean, from the way that the elevator door opens up to see this woman just holding this straight razor, the way that the glare and the kind of the Star Trek solar flare comes off of the damn thing, and it just slowly pans forward, and you can't even really distinguish what the hell this woman looks like, and the way it goes behind her, and she just kind of moves in on Angie Dickinson. All the way to the point when Nancy Allen's character shows up, sees Angie Dickinson's character dying, covered in blood, reaching out for her, and she just happens to look up at that little mirror in the corner of an elevator and sees somebody getting ready to slash her ass as soon as she comes in. I mean, so much tension and uneasiness and just grittiness in this scene, even though it's beautifully shot. It's one of the cooler parts of this movie. Still think that the most memorable scene is that museum scene, as crazy as that sounds, but that elevator scene is definitely what this movie is known for, just because of how visceral it is. Honestly, the only negative that I have with this movie, and it's a small negative because fortunately the movie does not hinge itself on this reveal. To me, I knew who the killer was going to be. I think that there was enough visual cues, there was enough storytelling elements, especially whenever they were revealing what Keith Gordon found on his little camera and the last person that came out of Michael Caine's office. That tipped me off immediately. I knew who the killer was going to be. But like I said, this movie doesn't really hinge itself to where that reveal makes the movie or breaks the movie. It doesn't. It's just another part of the storytelling. All of the movie is already in front of that reveal. Like everything that this movie is trying to do and trying to say and trying to succeed at, it already succeeds at before that reveal comes. So overall, guys, this was a great erotic thriller. I mean, it's easily up in the top for me as far as erotic thrillers because I haven't seen too many of them, but even in Brian De Palma's filmography, like I love him for his gangster shit, but this is up there now. Like Dressed to Kill is one of the more big showcases of what an amazing director that Brian De Palma is, even more so than on some of the gangster stuff, because he just puts so much style and just has such a huge achievement with how he just takes this, what I consider a simple story, and it kind of elevates it into this artistic experience. It's a very, very interesting thing to check out. So if you're a fan of erotic thrillers or a fan of Brian De Palma's work, definitely put this thing in your must-watch list. It is worth being in your collection. Grab the Criterion Collection edition if you want to get extra fancy, but no matter what edition you buy, go out and buy it. So what do you guys think of Dressed to Kill? Are you a fan of this movie? Is this one of your favorite erotic thrillers, one of your favorite Brian De Palma films, or have you seen it at all? Put all of your thoughts on this film, Brian De Palma, or erotic thrillers in general down in the comment section below, guys, and we'll talk about it. Derek, thank you so much for this recommendation. I'm pulling for you, my friend. I hope everything is going as good as it possibly can, and I really hope you do get some good news soon. And you're always in my thoughts and my prayers, so man, I hope you enjoy this review. More than willing to do another one. If you want to see me check out something else, just let me know. And as you've seen on Killer Flicks, man, we're behind you, brother. So stay strong, buddy. And if you guys want to check out the rest of my videos, please like and share this one. Hit the subscribe button so you can see all of my videos. If you want to check out some of my social media links, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that's all down in the video description below, as well as my Patreon page, my Spreadshirt store, which has got really cool designs. Check all that out, guys. And if you want to check out some more of my videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.